Hello, Star Lovelies. It's a great time to be a soul. Today we're talking about...
Hey there, we are doing the Celebrity Star Peak for Kendrick Lamar. So, my kids like Kendrick Lamar. That's the only reason why I know his name. Other than that, I do know that I don't know if he won a Pulitzer Prize, but he was up for it for lyrics. So that's really cool. And that's the sum total of what I know about him. But we're going to dive right in and look at his stars, because let's see what his stars tell us. So, if this is like me reading for someone that, I've kind of seen maybe in passing. So everybody has an interesting chart, honestly, and every single star chart is unique because the same star chart would only happen one every 25,000 years. And guess what? We're not 25,000 years old. And when you look at it from an evolutionary perspective, you'd have a unique soul imprint anyway. And so with evolutionary astrology, we're not only looking at what the painting is for the stars in the sky the minute that you're born, we're also looking at your soul coming into that energy. And that's what I focus exclusively on when I first start looking at someone's stars. I'm not really looking at the picture of the stars and where they are. I am looking through that lens. That's why I say I walk into the stars the minute you're born and I channel the voice of your soul, because I'm actually walking through the stars and they literally are all around me, and I'm getting the feeling of who you were and who you are and what your soul intended the minute you took your first breath. Pretty cool, right? So for Kendrick, he was born on June 17th, 1987. We've got a time of 3:04 p.m. He was in Compton, California. So the painting of the stars in the sky, it happened to be the sun was in Gemini, pretty late Gemini. There was only a few more days of Gemini to go. And Chiron on that year was placed in Gemini as well, and only a few degrees away. So when you're looking at his sun, and that is the center of who he is and who he wants to be, that's where the writer comes in. Gemini is all thoughts, ideas, words, conversation. It is talking, it is presenting, it is teaching, like anything with communication. Gemini, boom. And Gemini is very changeable. Gemini can handle a lot of duality. When you talk to a Gemini, they're the person that you can say, oh, the sky is blue. Oh, the sky is orange. Oh, the sky is purple. And the person will say, yes. How did you know? And they no problem with that. Even more extreme, this is black and this is white. And the person will say, I know, and not be looking at that shade of gray, be looking at and saying, isn't it the coolest black you've ever seen? And isn't it the purest and brightest and most sparkly white you've ever seen? Yes, true. So Geminis can handle duality in a beautiful way. And so when somebody is born under the sign of Gemini, that means that they wanted to have a larger range of life. Not better or worse, just a broader, changeable, adaptable, nimble mental life. Wanted to be able to challenge ideas, wanted to be able to be curious and discover lots of things, always wanting to be in interaction with life and with people. And so that's a Gemini. Now, that doesn't mean every Gemini is like that. I mean, we've got another, whole big body of planets and stars to go through, but that's the intention of the sun. His happens to be in the 9th house, which means that he loves the big ideas. He loves that philosophy. Here's a really great example. Instead of psychology, which studies the individual person and their mind, sociology or social anthropology studies the larger group, the larger community, and then looks through that lens and says, "Oh, what are the trends there? What are the similarities? What are the differences? How are things combined and how are things separate?" Very much, from what I understand, very much him. And when he has Chiron there, right there, I mean, they're really close together, happen to be in different houses. So technically Chiron is in his 8th house. What does that mean? That means that as he heals the world, he heals himself. And as he heals himself, he heals the world. I will tell you that to anybody with their Chiron, no matter where it is or what sign it's in. That's the deal with Chiron. Pretty cool, right? So Chiron is kind of like that more approachable, I don't want to say a little bit sexy, but a little bit more accepted view of wounding. And, he's very much touted because he was quote unquote discovered. That's just when we became conscious of him in 1977. So kind of new. And what I always say about Chiron is the fact that he comes with his own healing pack. So I adore him because he is so incredibly transparent about what it is that he's delivering to you from a healing perspective. Cool. And a lot of times it's to step into yourself in ways and to release things about yourself in ways. And so there he is. And he walks up to you and he kind of taps you on the shoulder and he says, hey, you know what, Kendrick? You know, it'd be really good if you were to deliver messages that were super healing, because as it passed through you, whether you say them or sing them or talk them or you have conversations about them, that vibration in your voice, that vibration in your chest with the sound coming out of your throat will be super healing for you too. That's what Chiron does. Cool. And it's to be pretty deep in that too. So he was never going to be just like talking about things that didn't matter, talking about things that were kind of tone deaf. I don't think that he would do that. At least he's not predisposed to do that, because the sun is the core of who he is. So this is central to his life. And his sun happens to be opposing Uranus, which is in Sagittarius in his third house, and his Uranus happens to be out of bounds. So what that means is that he's even more zany. He is a truth teller. He is the lightning bolt of, and I can finish that sentence with the lightning bolt of truth. He is not going to dissemble. He is not going to, especially in Sag, it's really fiery. And it's really, I mean, these are opposite signs and opposite houses. So talk about that extreme pull. I am going to pull this to the edges, the very, very tip of the edges, almost so that I can't even hang on and I'm going to be floating over that edge, but I'm not going to fall. So that's really cool too. And so he can't help himself but be disrupting. He can't help himself but be shocking. He is the shock and awe. And this is in the house of voice, that third house in Sagittarius, which is the opposite sign for that house. So Sagittarius wants to experience things. All those things that Gemini thinks, Sagittarius wants to do. So the combination of those two signs, if they're in your chart, oh baby, you want to not only be, intellectually curious and discover and read and have that mind expansion, you also want to then do it. Whereas Gemini alone doesn't necessarily have to do the things, just has to think about doing the things. Sagittarius has to do the things, but might not think about it. And then here we have someone who wants to do both. Cool. I look at other things and I'm going to go through his sun and his ascendant just to lay down that trifecta. That's the foundation of who you are, your sun, your moon, and your ascendant. And so the sun, core of who you are, central. I just talked about that. And so his moon is beautifully trine, which means it's super supported by his Mercury and Mars. His Mercury and Mars were dragging me from his sun, but I want to do the moon. And then I have an excuse to do both because the moon is beautifully soothing to his Mercury and to his Mars. So I'm going to go to the moon. It's in water. It's in Pisces. At the time I'm looking at this chart, it's no surprise. I will always find this with people when they come in to see me. There's always a planet in the sky that is hitting their own stars. And I look and I said, oh, that's why they're here right now. And for his case, the reason why it's coming up is Saturn is sitting on his moon. So Saturn is have you really explored this to the depths of everything and prioritized and made choice to stand in this responsibly? That's the question that Saturn asks of you. For his moon happens to be in Pisces in his fifth house. He cannot help himself but be an artist. This is artist expression, like 1 times a million, exponentially. So the moon is your heart. It's how you restore yourself. It's what you just can't help doing, even though it can be hidden from you. And it can be hidden from you for a lifetime. If you are very success-oriented, if you are very goal-oriented, if you are very linear thinking, you will put your heart out to pasture. And your heart is so kind, your heart will just sit and wait patiently for you on the sidelines forever, by the way. And so sometimes there's a placement with somebody's moon that I say, oh, you know what? Let's go dip into that. I had a client who had a double Virgo on either side of her Leo moon, and I spent 1.5 years helping her recognize that she had a Leo moon. Literally, I did ritual with her to sit beside her Leo moon. I talked through her Leo moon every single time we had a conversation. She just got the glimmer of it and then left the container. And that's okay, fair, right? So it can happen. It can be really hidden. His is not, which is beautiful. His can't be hidden because his soul said, we're not going to hide that from you. We're going to have it be so incredibly important. And we're going to do it by making that Mars and Mercury, yeah, it's only a degree away. We're going to make those two stars pull on your moon in very obvious ways. You're not going to be able to help yourself, but be that artist, but be that poet. On the top of his chart, I wrote 3 words. I wrote instigator, philosopher, and poet. I always look at the thematics, and that's what comes out. Because when I'm in your stars, I'm not doing it linear like this. I literally go in and I say, who wants to talk to me and what do you want to say? And then again, I'm speaking through the soul, and the soul will be like, oh, we're going over here, and then we're going over here, and then we're going over here, and we're looking at things. And that's the way I present it to you, because that's the way your soul wants to speak to you. In this case, I did this, probably about last week. I don't remember because I don't really recall, but I always write the most important thing on the top of the chart, so I will never forget, and it will be the guiding light for any of the work I do with you. So instigator was number 1. Philosopher was number 2. Poet was number 3. That's his moon. His moon, he is going to be soulful. He is going to be heartfelt. He's going to be emotionally charging. He can't help himself. Everything he talks about, and Jupiter is going to be here for him next year. So everything he talks about is going to make you cry, make you laugh, make you mad, make you emote in some way. This is his life path. This is his heart. He gains restoration of himself when he does that. It's so beautiful. And in that 5th house where his moon is, that's his creative expression. That's his falling in love with himself and falling in love with the world over and over and over again. How beautiful. And then when I look at his ascendant, so he was born at 3:04 p.m. The sun was not rising in Compton, California when he was born. However, somewhere in the world, the minute he was born, the sun was rising in Libra. That's what ascendant means. It's how you dawn on somebody. So it's if you were to ever be able to have a handshake with him, this is how he'd come across to you. And it's Libran. Very peaceful, very calm, very soothing on one hand. This is the scales that balance, right? So think about this. Think about combining this with that Gemini Sun. That Gemini Sun, as I just said, he has duality. He has that extreme. He had his Sun be in exact opposition to Uranus, that lightning bolt. He has his signs in exact opposition of his houses. He wants the scales to be extreme. So for someone else, I would read Libra as very soothing, very calming, very into beauty, very into design. I'm not saying he doesn't have a place for that, especially the beauty and design. I mean, I don't know what he dresses like or what he does for theatrics or what he does for image and style and what his house looks like. But I would hope for him that it was very beautiful because it matters to him. However, Libra can also be an advocate. Libra is justice. Libra is that ferocious energy of defense. It's the law. It's the how have we set order in this world. That's what his Libra does. And when I look to see where Venus is, because Venus is the ruler of his chart with that Libran ascendant, Venus is also in Gemini in the 8th house. Again, with those ideas, that conversation, he wants to rally and advocate for fill in the dots through his ideas, his thoughts, his words, and I know he's a singer, right? So his songs, but it's about the lyrics that matter. And here he has another expression of his heart with that Venus. That's the relationship between he and others that is in that Gemini of that mental processing. So for him to fall in love and for him to be in love, that person has to be intellectually, honestly, intellectually superior. It has to be next level because he will accept nothing else. Now, he's got really good luck in his love life. I don't know what he's experiencing. He's got some soul destiny there, which is really, he needs to be super brave about it. He enters through his descendant, that's his soulmate connection energy in Aries. That's bold, that's fiery, that's independent, that's fiercely commanding and authoritative in the healthy way. Or it's aggressive, argumentative, super selfish, and I'm just going to go along that selfish train, like just amazingly selfish. With Jupiter there, he could have really good luck, or it could be even more extreme. Going into his soul DNA, because again, this is one soulful person. He came in with he's a very old soul. He came in with a lot of energy that has to do with the stars and doesn't have to do with the stars, right? Because the soul in this life decided to have these stars, and for many reasons, but the soul has had many other star charts, right? So when I look at this and open this up, I am looking at it through these stars and what he came to resolve. But yet with him, it is so much more. He's going to multifaceted, multi-pack this just because his stars want to say that. And so when I look at his 12th house Libran soul karma in opposition to his 6th house Aryan soul destiny, remember, we just passed those. As of January, we just went into a different collective soul expression, but he just went through his second pass of his soul destiny expression in the halfway through 2023. And so he just went through that. So this is very tender, if you will, because the stars in the sky just kind of gave him a boost or a blast. Depends on how he managed it. And from a full perspective, he was not given voice in one of his souls. It was a female life, and he was, overrun by dad and then overrun by husband. That I see that all the time. I mean, just think about the way the world has been for the last millennium. And so his dad was a minister, and his husband was too. And I know it sounds weird when I say his because it was a female life. No voice. Absolutely no voice. So for him to find his voice, booyah, beautiful. That's beautiful. That's not the full story, though. Because then when I go to another life that he was a young boy and he was a piccolo player. And I don't know if they called them then back then, but it was one of those shorter, flutes, and it was light. That was one of the things. Light, he could stick it in his pocket. He had a very vivacious energy. And he was very alive for life. And damn, he was born in a family that was not as well off, so couldn't have his choice about when he wanted to be conscripted. And so he was conscripted into the, at the time, army, and he was the piccolo player. So think about that. Think about the pictures that you have seen of wartime, and they're in uniforms, and they're all in a line, and they've got this little, like, 2 or 3, set of people that have a flag and a drum and a piccolo and a trumpet. I mean, how fucked up is that? Right? Like, I mean, just think about it. Like, that is just really, that's ridiculous. And here he is. He's one of those little boys. He's a little boy. And he's like off playing the piccolo. So he's being dragged around from place to place in very arduous conditions. It's freaking war. And he's playing the damn piccolo. And so that he was like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. Which is why he had this. It was a pretty lush life as this woman under this husband and this father's thumb. And it wasn't violent. It wasn't like, extreme, and yet not really being given voice. That is extreme, right? And there are so many souls. Of course, there are so many souls because this has been a prevalent energy, right? So for him to be the antithesis of that, and that's what the soul does. As we look at the karma that's ripe to heal, the soul will say, you know what, I'm going to do something different, and I'm going to work on this from a different angle. And so one of the first, and it was the first life that came, and this is like a millennial plus ago, and he was queen-like on a stage. So it was like the queen of the stage. Yeah, and it was in the antithesis of some sort of religious construct that humanity came up with. So I'm not saying he was a queen. I'm not even saying he was female. It was much more about him being like the person, like, think about Shakespeare's time, right? So him being someone in some stage like that, which very much is talking to the populace, very much holds court, but yet is not on the court. Not in the noble way. And that's this life that he had. And I'm only doing a male life because I'm not positive that there could have been females, that it could have been that captivating in an organized stage theater creation. And that's the key. It was organized. He didn't have to deal with creating his own stage and traveling around and trying to get people to follow him. It was already created for him. There's a big, huge theater. He gets on it. He commands it. And this life was really beautiful for him because he was being able to speak the truth. However, he was speaking the truth in ways that were, again, anti-religion, anti-church, anti-dogma, basically, anti-fundamentalist. And he was run off, and he had to go, and I don't want to say in hiding, but, somewhat exiled from that stage. So he was not in the same community. So when he was looking to heal that energy, that's where he became part of an army, and he became part of a big, huge group of people and a big, huge belief that was larger than him. And he wanted to go along with that. Being dragged around from place to place kind of sucked. Being incredibly impoverished kind of blew. So he goes into another life, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna be in this life that has this beautiful sense of luxury, even though it was probably middle class. But yay, I have a house. I don't have to worry about this. I have to move from place to place. This is great. Crap, lost my voice. That's what happens when I look through soul DNA through this lens. I can look at it other ways, but not in that star reading. And so I also bring in Pluto here, and Pluto for him is in Scorpio in the first house. So this is the wounded soul. This is like that starving artist. This is that angst that you get, if you can imagine him. And he's probably still like this, I think, maybe. That, again, with that emotional tenor that he can touch your soul. That's what he can do. He can touch your soul. He's very much looking for his own soul when he does that. The scorpionic Plutonian energy combination is really tough, and anybody born between 1987 and 1995 has it. And it's literally like wounding, like to the tenfold. And so we can only be thankful that it was only a decade-ish long, because this is a lot. And for anybody who's been born under that star, it's a real lot. And for him to have it in his first house, it's very obvious. So good for him for having a vocation that allows him to provoke and to be able to create wholeness. And yet I'm in that energy right now. He's not. He's running from it, as we all do. Like, this is not any judgment. Like, we all do. Like, damn, you want to look at the worst part of yourself? Sure, bring it on. That's great. You're not going to be like, yeah, let's go have a cup of tea with that. Let's just sit down and chat. You're going to be like, fuck, that's really ugly. Kind of hate this. No. And you're going to do things that will, yes, you're going to kind of go through all those stages of grief, denial, and you're going to rationalize and all the things. Yes, of course, because we're human. Absolutely. And he's like in his, am I doing math and right in my head? He's like in his 30s, 38. Sure. My God, keep going, bud, because you're doing great on certain things. And that's what we can do. We can work on what we can work on as it unfolds for us. I will tell you, he's had some tough unfolding though. Because anytime his soul karma and destiny is stirred, which I talked about, it was just like a year and a half ago, where his Pluto sits, it gives that vibration to that too. So he gets a double whammy. So I don't know what was going on for him during that time, but it was not awesome. It was pretty sucky. And that could be internal, because where it resides in his chart, it can have external effect. But with Pluto, it doesn't have to. You can hide that shit pretty fast, unless your soul says enough. So again, I don't know. I'm not totally opening his stars, because I don't have a right to do that. I am doing a star walk very gently, very tenderly, and only where he is letting me go. Because this is an honoring. This is homage to him. Another energy that wants to be talked about is his beautiful Neptune, because that really supports him. Anytime he is soulfully responsible, because his Neptune happens to be in Capricorn in his third house. And what does that mean? That means that that's another expression of soulfulness, right? Because I've been using that word a lot for him, and I don't use that word a lot. When you see Neptune in Capricorn, and this is another generational thing, so it's a swath of time. It is like that wise elder. And so for Selena, I have her at the top of her chart, wise elder. So that very much came out in her stars in a way that it didn't, honestly, with either Taylor or with Kendrick. When I'm in his stars, it's that tenacity and that discipline to tell the whole story, and to be committed to the story, and to have that be the long game about it. That's the way it's reading in his chart. Yeah, and he just wanted me to mention that. And that really helps him with that angst and with that recovery of his soul through that Pluto that he has there. So that's beautiful. So that's really wonderful support. And anytime he is in that shock and awe energy, he has really good luck to attract people into his life. And he can attract people that he's really close to and he has really strong relationship with in his camaraderie, in his posse that are really close to him. I don't know if he's said yes to himself on that. And I'm wondering. It's unknowable to me right now. But it wouldn't surprise me either way. It wouldn't surprise me if he said yes to that, and it wouldn't surprise me if he said no to that. I hope, for his sake, his soul hopes that he said yes, at least to have one or two people that he can really trust and really rely on, because he does have a lot of karma in relationship, even though his stars are a smattering across the globe. He's got stars on his free will side. He's got stars on going with the flow side. He's got stars in that upper canopy where he wants to be external in the world. And he has stars that are very much internal and very much for him and him alone. So his soul destiny just wants me to speak just a little bit more about the lineage of it, about the awakening and that being real. It's really important to him. He would much rather be real and be truthful than be liked and be false. And I love that for him. His soul is singing when I just said that. I am going to peek at his human design a little bit. Just again, I always look for the information that can help with that soul destiny and that soul karma. And he has the right angle cross of Eden, and that's his incarnation cross, and that's what relates to his soul karma. I don't know if literally in the human design study it does, but that's where I go into it. It's done wonders for me in helping my clients with their soul destiny. And for him, that right cross of Eden, it sounds, you think Garden of Eden, but it is. And I have a client who I just read for this week that has this same right angle. And it's about dealing with conflict and crisis and chaos and being able to bring order to it. And so that's beautiful. And again, I read his stars in this way that just supports that. When I look at his profile and I look at his type, he's a manifesting generator. So he's got, again, there's that two-tone of energy that I was in when I was in his sun, and I was in that opposition to his sun. And when I was with his ascendant, right? So I was talking about that balancing of scales, and I was talking about the duality of Gemini. The Manny Gen is the same. It's like I can manifest so I can open wide, and I always look at that energy as horizontal, like wrapping your energy around the world. And then with that generation is that very much like I can be out in the world gathering the energy I want and bringing it forth to me. Yes, I know about the response and I know about the waiting and all this stuff. Yeah, I'm just going in the energy itself. When I look at his profile of a 4-6, near and dear to my heart because I have that too. But that 4-6 is to be achieving that unconscious role model, but to do it in a way, and the 4 can be opportunistic. So that's the way that we can have that false delusion around that and be like, yeah, I'm just going to hit that achievement, train, and I'm just going to ride that achievement train for success. And I'm really not going to be heartfelt about it. Hello, 4. But then the 6 can also do that, because the 6 can be like, well, I'm going to stand on my island over here, or like a lion on our pride. I'm going to stand on my pride and just kind of look and be separate. Yeah. And then the universe laughs, right? And your soul goes, oh, that's just not the way that is. Because for you to have the appetite for your life that is just so sentient, you literally can't not have that satisfying, that soulful, that heart connection with others, because your soul's going to make sure you do that. And so that's Kendrick Lamar. I'm just looking around to see if there's anything else that he wants me to talk about, and he doesn't want me to talk about anything else. He's quite finished with this conversation. So I honor you, Kendrick Lamar, the instigator, the philosopher, the poet, and I honor you, listeners. Thank you so much. I'm hoping that these celebrity star peaks give us a different layer of information about how the stars can work for you. That's really what this is about. And when I do it for celebrity, which I don't do often, by the way, this is a very intentional and a very short-lived exercise, by the way. I'm hoping that you can get a glimmer, because you can look up some things in the life and say, gee, is that materializing? Is that not materializing? Is this something that rings true or not? And you can just get a different layer of a deeper appreciation. So with that, as always, thank you so much for listening and sharing with friends. And I will bid you adieu until next time. Happy soul tidings.
Thank you for listening, and stay tuned for more ways to use the stars strategically to align with your soul purpose, reclaim your power, and increase your prosperity. Please rate and review your favorite episodes, and remember to check out my website at kimwoods.com for my latest forecasts, articles, and offerings. To find out your intuitive success signature, take my 12-question Do You Know, Like, and Trust Yourself quiz and find out how you're living your stars at yourstarmaptosuccess.com. I've so enjoyed our time together as it's filled with the power of the stars plus strategy to clear the pathway to your success. Until next time, happy soul tidings.